Hi guys, story recaps here. Today, I am going to explain a 2016 American action thriller film called The Accountant. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. A couple takes their son, Chris, to an autistic center in the hopes of learning more about him. They explain that they have to move around a lot because their husband is in the army, and the director agrees to let Chris reside there. Chris doesn't need to be kept away from the things that irritate him, says the husband. Because that's how the world works, he needs to be pushed to deal with them. Chris works on a puzzle in a waiting area while chanting nursery songs to himself. When he gets down to the last piece, he can't find it and has a nervous breakdown. He calms down as a little girl finds the missing piece and delivers it to him. Chris is currently employed as an accountant. He sits in his office with a couple who is having financial difficulties and educates them on how to file their taxes in the most efficient way possible. They are grateful, and the husband offers Chris the opportunity to practice shooting on their property at any time. The director of the U.S. Treasury, a guy named King, summons an analyst named Medina to his office to speak with her. He congratulates her on her achievements and inquires as to why she hasn't advanced to the next level. He accuses her of lying when she says she enjoys merely being an analyst. He searches up her arrest records from her childhood and tells her that lying on a federal employment application is against the law, and that her background should have disqualified her from the position. He tells her that she must work on a special project for him if she wants to keep her employment. He shows her images of the accountant and all of the criminals with whom he works. He has been accused of assassinating people and assisting them in keeping track of their unlawful earnings. Medina is warned by King that she would lose her job if she does not discover out who this person is and solve the case before the end of the month. Chris goes home and makes himself dinner. Before going to bed, he turns on strobe lights and heavy metal music and painfully massages his shins with a wooden rod. He has flashbacks of his mother leaving their family when he was a child at Christmas. Chris takes his medication and goes to bed. Later, he returns to his client's farm to practice shooting, and the man is astounded by Chris's shooting ability. Chris pulls up to the trailer storage place where he stores it. He has a lot of pricey collectibles and artworks inside, as well as a lot of money in various currencies. He also has a big arsenal of weapons. As he rests in his bed, he has a flashback of his time in prison. His cellmate mentored him, teaching him various social skills and preparing him for his profession as a money handler for violent criminals. The ringing of his phone wakes Chris up, and he answers it. A British woman who appears to be his employee advises him to find some regular clients since she believes people are becoming suspicious of him. He reluctantly takes the case of a regular client. He walks into a meeting with one of his new clients, a robotics prosthetics company owner. They want Chris to investigate after one of their in-house accountants discovered that someone within the company is skimming money from the company's revenues. Chris takes the position and vows to begin the next day. Medina glances through her photos and zooms in on one that shows a portion of the accountant's face. She crops the shot and sends it to the Department of Face Mapping for examination. Brax, a dangerous man hired to hold businessmen responsible for money laundering, breaks into a man's car in a Swiss parking garage before he can drive away. He threatens him with a revolver and demands that he cease shorting other firms' money. Brax has to beat him up, but the man eventually accepts, and it's time to leave. Chris enters the conference room where he has been granted permission to work for the corporation and discovers a woman dozing at the table. He wakes her up awkwardly, and she apologizes. She introduced herself as Dana, the woman who originally discovered that money had gone missing. She gives him an overview of the problem and believes they'll be working together, but Chris expresses his preference for working alone. Medina receives a phone call from Homeland Security regarding the facial recognition request at a news briefing. They found an audio clip of a man begging for his life just before the accountant kills him during one of his attacks. They provide the audio recording to Medina by email. During lunch, Dana sits next to Chris and tries to start up a conversation. Chris makes an effort to mix, but it's clear that he's not very successful. Dana talks about how her father influenced her decision to seek a profession in accounting. Chris returns to the conference room and spends so much time performing math on the whiteboard that he has to work on the windows all around him. Until he gets a breakthrough, he covers the entire room with his work. Medina listens to the audio file over and over at home, isolating the accountant's vocals with her equipment. He may be heard humming a nursery song to himself, which she can hear. Chris proudly displays his findings in the conference room and informs Dana that he has discovered a money leak. Someone is sending money to a non-existent company. One of the company's shareholders interrupts them and asks Chris for the results. However, he tells her that he doesn't have a definitive answer yet and that he needs more time before he can say who is taking the money. Brax pays a visit to one of the robotics company's shareholders at his home in the middle of the night and tells him to get insulin from the fridge and bring it over to the table, where he can either inject himself with the insulin and make his death appear to be a suicide so that his wife can collect on his life insurance policy, or he can fight back and Brax will kill both him and his wife. The man makes the decision to inject himself. The next day, as Chris arrives at the conference room, custodians are inside erasing his art off the windows. He begs them to stop, and the company's owner enters to explain that his best friend, a stockholder, committed suicide last night due to remorse over the company's theft of funds, and he asks Chris to cease working on the case. Chris feels disappointed that he was unable to complete the task he began. Chris returns home and spends the evening pounding his shins with his wooden rod while listening to heavy metal music and turning on the strobe lights. And he smashes the rod on his shin and throws his medication bottle. He relaxes, takes his meds. When he leaves the house the next morning, he is followed by an automobile. Chris returns to his client's property to rehearse shooting. He remembers battling with his brother, Brax, and a trainer his father hired as a child. They are beaten by the trainer and are covered in cuts and bruises. The trainer wants to call it a day, but their father insists that they haven't had their fill. He forces the youngsters to stand up and continue fighting. A couple of guys are holding the two clients hostage inside the residence. They order the wife to go outside and summon Chris so they can reach him. Chris shoots a bandit who is escorting her to the front door from the yard. The couple is forced to get in their pickup and leave their property by the second thug. Chris fires a shot at the truck, which comes to a halt, and drags the guy out. Chris uses his belt to strangle the man and demands to know who he works for. The individual claims he has no idea who is in charge and was only commanded to kill Chris and Dana. Chris assassinates the man and flees the scene, headed towards Dana's home. Chris arrives just in time to watch a man follow Dana to her apartment building and get into the elevator with her. Chris enters the building through the back door and ascends the stairwell. When Dana arrives at her apartment, two delivery guys inform her that she has a gift. They barge into her apartment and attempt to control her, but she fights back and flees to the bathroom to hide. Chris enters the flat, kills the two men, and invites Dana to accompany him. Brax receives word that the accountant has assassinated his troops. Dana is taken to Chris's trailer and told to wait outside while he gets dressed. Regardless, she enters and sees all of his cash and guns. She interrogates him about them, but he is unable to provide her with any concrete responses. Medina receives a call from language services regarding an audio recording she sent. They warn her that the man she's seeking for could have been abused as a child or suffer from a neurological ailment that causes him to recite the nursery rhyme when he's stressed. Medina visits the IRS offices and collaborates with an employee to try to match the accountant's aliases with those who earn a lot of money. Chris whisks Dana out to a posh hotel, where she interrogates him about his fighting prowess. He tells her that his father was in the army and that he was forced to learn to be able to stand up to bullies. He also informs her that he has autism and that, despite his best efforts, he finds it difficult to interact. Dana tells him about a dress she really desired in high school and how she learned to gamble and count cards in order to get it. Dana goes in to kiss Chris during an emotional moment, but Chris pulls away, having a discovery regarding the robotics case. He informs her that money was being funneled out of the company just to be reinvested in order to increase profits. Chris follows Brax along the street some time later, and Brax notices and shoots at him. Chris proceeds to pursue him and discovers that she has been shot to death in one of the shareholders' hotel rooms. Medina works with the IRS employee and discovers the accountant's real name, Chris, and that he works as an accountant at a small firm in a building connected to a slew of cash businesses that he owns and uses to disguise his income. Medina informs King of this knowledge, and she informs him that the majority of Chris's earnings are donated to neuroscience groups. Dana is sleeping on the couch when Chris returns to the hotel. He remembers his father forcing him and his brother to fight up a gang of students who had bullied him earlier in the day at school. Chris believes that keeping Dana involved is too risky, so he packs his belongings and goes. A team of investigators is led by King and Medina through Chris's home, noting all of his peculiar habits. They discover that he has a large number of firearms with no serial numbers and a sophisticated security system. The owner of the robots firm hires Brax to install security cameras in his home in case Chris tries to pursue him. The other detectives are dismissed, and King and Medina remain in the house to chat. He begs Medina to tell him about her arrest, and she tells him that she attempted to kill a drug dealer who was providing it to her sister, and that she has no regrets about her actions. King tells Medina how long he's been looking for the accountant and the difficulties he's had to overcome to get this far. He claims he was at the hotel where Chris's audio was captured and overheard him murdering the man. Chris then held him at gunpoint and demanded to know if he was a decent father. Chris let King go once he said yes. He saw Chris's decision to save his life as a sign to leave, and just as he was about to leave his workplace for good, he received a call from a woman with a British accent offering information on a forthcoming illicit deal. He chose to stay on the force and use the woman on the phone as an informant. After being imprisoned for assisting criminals with their money, King questioned Chris's cellmate, who was a federal informant. When he was ultimately set free, the individuals for whom he used to work tracked him down, tortured him, and murdered him. Chris panicked out and left the prison when one of the guards informed him of his cellmate's death. Later, he and his father went to his mother's funeral, but Chris had a nervous breakdown when they were ordered to leave. Chris was shot by a security guard, but his father jumped in front of the bullet and was killed. Medina inquires as to why King is telling her all of this, and he responds that after he retires in 7 months, he wants Medina to be the one who answers the phone for the British woman. Medina answers the phone that rings at Chris's place. On the other end of the telephone is a British woman who provides Medina some information about the robotics firm. When Chris arrives on the site, Brax is at the home of the firm owner. Brax dispatches some of his men, and Chris murders all but one, whom he keeps to question about the house's layout. Brax keeps an eye on the surveillance cameras as he dispatches his men to Chris, attempting to give them orders on how to take him out. Chris is injured, but he manages to kill all of the men Brax sends after him and gain entry to the home. Brax recognizes Chris as his brother while watching surveillance footage and instructs his soldiers to stand down. Brax goes to Chris, and the owner of the company takes his place in front of the cameras. Brax is first enraged with Chris for not being able to reach him for over 10 years, and he is also outraged that Chris attended their mother's burial. Brax blames Chris for their father's death, and Chris allows Brax to strike him in order to vent his rage. Chris seizes control of the situation and threatens Brax with a gun until he calms down. The two brothers reconcile. The firm owner enters the room, perplexed and irritated that Brax hasn't taken care of Chris. Chris shoots the firm owner and returns to his conversation with his brother. Before Chris departs, he pledges to meet with Brax in a week to catch up. Another pair of parents comes to the neuroscience facility for help with their autistic kid. Their son stumbles into one of the rooms, where he meets Justine, the director's daughter. She was the same little girl who used to help Chris with his puzzle when he was a kid. According to the filmmaker, Justine is nonverbal but communicates through a high-tech laptop. When Justine shows how she interacts, the computer emanates the same British lady who works with Chris. Dana returns to her apartment to clean up and receives a package. When she opens it, she expects to see a famous artwork, but upon closer investigation, she realizes that the outside canvas is just covering what's on the inside. She pulls off the outer sheet, revealing a very expensive artwork she recognized from Chris's secret trailer. Subscribe and turn on the notifications. We daily upload videos like this.